right, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Double M Radio Gamescast, episode number 44. As always, I am your host, Ryan, and I'm joined by my lovely cohort of co-hosts. Actually, this time, Brett.
Hello.
Wyatt. Wyatt, no, and Alex.
Hi.
Well,
Rip Wyatt.
it almost
boy.
went off without a hitch. Almost. That's okay. We'll get him back. But we got an action-packed show this week, as I think most people listening can probably expect from the wild roller coaster that has been the past week in games news in general and the stock market. Normally we don't talk about the stock market, but guess what? GameStop's made some waves, so we're going to be talking about that. And we've also got some impressions from The Medium, the new pseudo-horror game.
Hello?
Yeah, you
Hello?
did it. We got it back.
Okay, cool.
Welcome back to the world of living. All right.
It's good to be back.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with some basic news from the week. Just your average news, the stuff that doesn't really amount to much. So I say that, but actually we have two really sad bits of news this week. Okay, so first of all, there was a bit of an internet rage, not rage, but interest in an actress after Resident Evil Village's visual demo had an actress that people kind of fell in love with. Unfortunately, that actress, Jeanette Mouse, died very recently of colon cancer.
No.
So,
oh no.
It was a sad time. People were very, very sad. And again, in the games industry deaths, one that I think is probably going to hit a lot of people is Horizon Zero Dawn's lead designer and concept artist, Mike Nash, passed away at age 36. We don't have a given reason. It could be from anything. I think likely it was probably complications from something, but they shared a bunch of concept art from him, stuff that never made it into the game, and it's all fantastic. It's really sad considering that he is one of the people that really made Horizon Zero Dawn what it was. So hopefully that legacy continues in Forbidden West. But for now, we've unfortunately lost a really good artist. So sad to see that happen. But we've got some better news. All right, we got some nice things. So normally a demotion of someone in a game studio probably wouldn't be considered nice news. But we have a bit of a unique situation where the Yakuza franchise's creator, Nagoshi, was overseeing Sega as creative director. Or not creative director. He was overseeing it as the CCO, the Chief Creative Officer. He has stepped down and basically demoted himself to creative director, so that which for those who don't know this role in Sega, the difference is basically the chief creative officer is overseeing things, the creative director is actually influencing the game a lot more. So he kind of stepped down so that he had more control over the franchise, which is actually really cool. It's a neat thing to do. And I'm curious to see who they get to replace him. All right. We have some more news about Gary's Mod sequel, the S-Box, which has kind of been like vanished from a very long time. Like nobody's heard anything about this for what
There's
feels
a
like
sequel for Gmod?
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was a sequel. Yeah.
Well, because it was announced like 10 years ago or something, and then kind of vanished off the face of the earth. So it's happening. It is happening.
Okay.
It's made some major progress. It looks really cool.
Is that all that can really be said? Is that it's happening?
Well, it's made major progress. So basically, we have video of a bunch of the like mechanics right now. So it's essentially like a super advanced Gmod. It's kind of like in the vein of things that you would expect from something like Dreams almost, but it's a little more gamey. So I think fans of Gmod will be excited to see this. It's got its own like art style and everything. I'm curious to see what it ends up actually looking like, and it's not just source mod format. Hey Wyatt, I got some news I think you're gonna like.
Ooh, okay.
Deep Rock Galactic has broken 2 million copies sold.
I'm literally playing that right now.
Which is
I didn't even plan that. I did not even plan that.
Which is
Wow.
huge for an indie studio.
That makes me
yeah.
so happy,
And
legitimately.
it's a wonderful game. Absolutely recommend checking it out.
I think I mentioned it as like one of my runner-ups for Game of the Year during our awards episode.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore that game, and I put way too much time into it, more than I'm willing to admit. So, yeah, it's good stuff.
All right. Now, I think we mentioned 2 weeks ago a mod called Fallout: The Frontier. A super interesting mod with a lot of creative talent behind it. Unfortunately, that mod has now been hidden by its creators on the Nexus Mod site because one of the developers was found to have posted some pedophilic art.
Yeah.
Oh.
My Little
So,
Pony.
this is an interesting scenario because I think this is the first time that the development team has taken a mod down, especially of this size, because of this kind of issue. And basically, they released a statement saying that the team itself was like deeply uncomfortable after they found this out. So they're having conversations about possibly cutting out some of that content. And that's also been reactions from people, is that overall the mod's got some really, really cool stuff, but there are some scenes that are a little problematic. It's at best just not necessarily things I think people want to see in a Fallout game. It gets very dark and talks about some topics that maybe aren't great.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm not going to go into detail about it, but you can totally look it up if you want to. There's some really interesting stories around it right now. But in general, impressions were, I think, pretty positive, especially considering they managed to make stuff like vehicles work in New Vegas's engine, which is kind of bonkers. That's something people kind of didn't think was possible in Gamebryo. So,
Stroke of programming luck and an immense amount of talent.
yeah, just like immense amount of like creative workarounds to things that the engine can't do. It's like New Vegas is the game that infamously the way a train was programmed is that it was on an NPC's head that walked around.
What?
Like, yeah.
Wait, roll that back.
What?
So if you've never seen the image, there's an image of how trains are handled. It's either in Fallout 3 or New Vegas. I think it's New Vegas. It could be both. Where the way trains moved around, because you couldn't actually like ride them, they just moved, is that they were on top of the head of a character that would just like run around the track.
Sick.
What?
Oh, Bethesda.
What?
Oh, wait, no,
Why?
not
I don't know
Bethesda.
why, but it's amazing. Yeah, Bethesda.
Bethesda.
That's like the way
It's
I would
Bethesda's
program
engine.
something.
Wait,
Which
New
you should
Vegas
never
was
do.
still Obsidian.
New
though,
Vegas
right?
was Obsidian, but they made it with Bethesda's engine. So. Yeah, I don't know if that was Fallout 3 or 4. Not 4. It definitely wasn't 4. It was Fallout 3 or New
You're
Vegas.
telling me with all these vehicles, it's just a bunch of people attached to vehicles running around? Is that what's going on here?
Yep.
I mean, really, that's what we do in real life. We
hey,
run
yeah.
around inside cars.
Oh, sure.
All
Right,
right.
obviously.
So some of us might remember a little game that came out by the name of Bleeding Edge. Bleeding Edge was Ninja Theory's multiplayer thing. They have announced that they will no longer be supporting Bleeding Edge.
Surprising absolutely no one.
A game that got almost no marketing, released to zero fanfare, and just kind of died immediately. So,
well, also I think part of the problem was that it was being made by a studio that just, not that they can't make a multiplayer game, but it's made by the guys who did Hellblade, and so it's just not typically what you would expect from that.
They don't
studio.
have like the multiplayer fan base already existing, which usually helps those games.
Their fans want something, single player, story based, narrative, something or other, not,
especially because like Senua's Saga, it's or not Senua's Saga, Hellblade in general wasn't super lauded for combat. Like, it was good, but the thing that people loved was the narrative and the way it handled psychology. So
yeah,
I think that probably meant a lot of their audience didn't have the overlap they were looking for with a multiplayer.
There's a certain type of psychology
game.
you can examine in multiplayer, and it's not a good type.
Yeah.
No, it's the 12-year-old type.
All right. So we got some interesting things to talk about with a certain stock. this past week and a half or so, known as GME, otherwise also known as GameStop. So
You may have heard of them.
for
A little
those,
mom and pop company.
it's almost impossible for you to not have heard about this by this point. I think it's been on most major news platforms, but there's a lot of developments, and the interesting thing here is that like GameStop is the catalyst for this. Like, I just find that hilarious.
So
Yeah.
how? A quick little question: how close was this to our last episode? Like, was this another instance of something happening right after we do a?
Pretty close. It was like
Mm.
Wednesday of last week is I think when it really started kicking off into major
Oh,
news
that's not
lines.
bad.
So yeah, not super close to when we do our normal stuff, but it's just been such a rapid fire set of days. So for a bit of an outline on this, because it is a little bit hard to understand, the gist of the matter is that a couple of hedge funds, which are essentially very rich investment companies, took out something called shorts on GameStop, which means they expect the company to do worse at a certain point in time than when they buy the shares. Basically, they're borrowing shares of GameStop from someone else, and they're saying they're going to sell them back to them down the line for less to make money. Of course, that is not what happened. People can see, so everything in the stock market is pretty visible, right? It has to be to prevent manipulation. So people knew that there was a lot of short interest in GameStop, which meant they know there's a lot of people that have short calls on GameStop. They don't know when they expire. They don't know that kind of thing. But it does mean that there are people that have to buy GameStop stock at the price it's at when that short call expires. So what they knew essentially is that if they bought that stock and held on to it, as a lot of people, if a lot of people did that, they could essentially boost the price to the point you would be making what they're making right now. So they're making a ton off of this, because basically GameStop stock was like $4 at a certain point in the past few months. The average I think was around $14. Right now GameStop is worth like $300 to $500 per share. So people could have bought it for $4 and be selling it for $500.
Oh, that feels good.
Yep. And where it gets even crazier is if people don't sell, if they continue to not sell, the stock price is just going to go up until something happens. Nobody really knows what's going to happen because this has never really happened before. This isn't the kind of thing that the stock market is built to handle. So where the ceiling is for this, we really don't know what that's going to be. The big thing that a lot of people don't realize is right now you can still kind of get in on this and like boost that stock price if you want to, but it's always a risk. Like, that's the thing with the stock market. There's always a risk. And the big thing here is eventually that stock's going to hit the point where enough people start selling that the short interest is not there anymore. They'll essentially have been able to buy out all the shares they could have, right? So that means eventually this price is going to plummet. So it's essentially a ticking time bomb at this point for everyone who has it. As long as everyone keeps holding on to it, the price keeps going up until people start to cash out, at which point it's going to go down. So I'm very curious to see how this whole saga is going to end. Yeah, it's just a very interesting thing. I don't know if anyone else has other things they want to ask or are curious about with this. But
I mean, I don't know if I really understand the stock market enough to like comment, I guess, but I get like the basic gist of it, obviously.
I think that's where most people are coming from, is this is just kind of interesting. It's not really something that's super understandable even to someone who does know the stock market, I think. Because it's
unfortunate.
I think the big misconception here is a lot of, well, not a lot, but some news things have been calling this like market manipulation. It's not, because everyone can see that there's a lot of short interest in GameStop. And when a company takes out a short call, they know it's a risk. And in this case, it was a really bad risk. Like, they took out so much money's worth of those calls that they knew at some point they were going to have to buy back. So it was kind of inevitable that something like this would eventually happen with a stock. It's just curious that it is GameStop that it's happening with.
I mean, Well, from all the stuff that I've heard, what's going on is perfectly legal to happen.
Oh yeah, like the
And
stuff
people are
that's
getting so upset because they're the hedge funds losing money, and they're
yeah.
calling this amoral or illegal and somehow. But
I mean, the people who were initially trying to benefit off of it were or from what it seems like, we're trying to profit off of other people's misfortune because
I
it
mean,
wasn't
yeah,
doing
that's what the
very
hedge
well to
fund is
begin
doing.
with.
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
The hedge
So
fund
if
is
we're talking
basically
about it being
calling.
immoral, so
Yeah.
like I find it kind of funny how they're claiming it as immoral, but like you're the ones that are profiting off of.
Because when a fund makes that short call, what they're essentially betting is that a company's going to go out of business, and that they want it to go out of business to get that payout. So, yeah, it's really
Morally, it's a pretty like crappy thing to do already.
Yeah.
But
Here, I thought the next financial crisis would be the auto industry, like it was with homes in 2008. But no, it was going to be with GameStop. Who knew?
With fucking GameStop.
because it has to be the ultimate gamer meme.
of course. And for those who don't know, the group that like kind of pioneered this, if that's the right word to use, is Reddit's Wall Street Bets community, which has also undergone its own saga of it basically got flooded with market bots that were spamming other stocks to try and get people to get distracted from the GameStop stuff and not do it.
Wow.
To keep the price from rising too high. And then the entire subreddit went down and went private for a few hours one day. And at that point, the GameStop stock crashed pretty hard. Like it dropped $100 within that few hour span, and the site came back, and then it was boosted back up, of course. So now it's just like super interesting looking at that. Like
That bot interference doesn't seem right.
yeah, the bot interference is weird because I don't think anyone really knows who's doing it. Because I highly doubt these hedge fund managers are like botting a Reddit.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
that seems, I don't know. I could see it. I think at some point they probably did get involved because it was really, really weird to look at it. Like it would just be flooded with like hundreds of posts every few minutes, or not every few minutes. Like every minute there'd be hundreds of posts like telling you to get into other stuff. So yeah, it's a weird situation in general. And then of course, what got even weirder is that Robinhood stopped allowing its users to sell GameStop. Which essentially means that if there's no sellers for a stock, the stock is worthless. Or if there's no ability to sell, there's no buyers, right? So you can't buy more, you can't sell it. So you're just stuck at that position. If there's no buyers, there's no sellers, or if there's no buyers, there's no ability to sell at a high price point. So that is what we would call market manipulation.
Yeah.
And
which is illegal.
It's so beautiful that it's called Robin
I
Hood.
know.
It's just
Oh.
the most ironic.
Poetic.
Yeah. Just wonderful.
Such an example of irony is truly rare in the world. Like this.
Yeah.
This is a gem.
I think
it
the
can't
thing
just be
they
one
realized,
crazy thing. It has to be this crazy
Yeah,
mountain
it's
of
gotta be a sequence.
stuff.
because part of Robinhood is owned by a company that I think had some stake in that hedge fund. So it's a little bit weird. I don't 100% know how true that is. I think we do know that they had at least a little bit of a stake in that hedge fund. But again, that for a lot of companies, it'll probably be the case. And for most of them, it's probably not very much. So I don't know how much of that is actually true. Again, this is not a financial podcast where we talk about video games, and this is just really interesting because it involves the games industry. So yeah, It's just a super weird thing. The reality is, at some point, that bubble is going to burst, and what's called a short squeeze is going to happen, and that means that stock is going to skyrocket for a very short amount of time, and it's eventually going to go down. And I think the thing a lot of people getting in on it don't realize is that when that stock goes down, you better be there to sell it, or else you're going to be left with like $10 worth of GameStop. It's going to go back to its normal price point. So I think that's the thing a lot of people are getting in on this don't realize is you really need to monitor this closely, because if you miss out on that squeeze moment, then you are out a lot of money if you bought in anywhere past the normal price point of GameStop. So I'm sure we'll have updates on that in the next week or so.
It's gonna happen soon for sure.
It's gotta happen, like at some point. But all right, we got another interesting stock market thing. CD Projekt Red, of course, had a big stock fall after Cyberpunk released.
Can't imagine why.
It's had now another stock rise because Elon Musk tweeted about Cyberpunk. And CD Projekt Red's stock rose 19%.
He's an influencer now. Oh no.
It is incredible. I don't get it. I don't understand the stock market. So yeah, that it's been a very interesting couple of weeks.
They better have sent Elon a very nice thank you letter.
Yeah,
That's all I
the
can
stock
say.
market is crazy.
They better have sent Elon a nice Cyberpunk Xbox One to play it on.
With a
away.
nice
That doesn't
cyberpunk
even-
chair. No, with the
That
cyberpunk chair.
that isn't even able to handle the game
Though. That's right.
until
But hey.
they hopefully patch it enough.
This
In a
means
few months.
we can now stop talking about the stock market and start talking about video games.
Woo!
No
Ooh.
way.
All right,
We are
so
now back to being a Halo podcast, everyone.
Video game.
There's
Speaking
a
of
little
which-
known video game called Skate. You guys know Skate?
Yes, I've heard
Yes.
of it.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
I
Enlighten me,
took one of
please.
the discs once and we threw it under the roof of one of the residence halls. Please continue.
All right, great.
Degenerates.
We've now learned that Skate 4 is being developed by a newly formed EA Vancouver studio called Full Circle. That's neat.
Okay.
It's just a neat little thing. We got a new EA studio. So they're not just killing studios, they're also bringing some new ones.
Do
you
we
go.
have any word of the any cool people that are there from past teams or anything like that?
Yeah,
or
it is a
just-
lot of past teams. It's
okay.
led by Darren Chung and Cuz Perry, who are both creative leads on the last Skate games. So, yeah, it is
That's a good
at
sign.
least partially formed from veterans from the Skate franchise. It's not just a new studio with no talent behind it. We don't really know the details of the rest of the studio, but at least those two are heavily involved.
Nice.
All right, that's most of the news. Aside from Wyatt, did you have something about Halo?
I did. They as in 343 did release some development news in that. It's very small, but they did say that all of the content that's planned is now in the game and it's just going through daily testing now. So
Hey, I mean, last time we heard a post like that was a year ago with Cyberpunk. So I am now forever cautious about those updates.
Oh.
A glacier of salt.
I understand. I understand. It's just, it's something.
It is.
I'm not saying it's good or bad news. I'm saying that it is in fact news.
It
Oh,
is
yeah.
news.
It is unmistakably news. So-
Yep.
I have a little something as well.
All right, all right.
But I
Ooh.
forget the the specific name of the studio. So oh well. It's like a bunch of ex Dice people have coagulated together to basically make their own version of a Battlefield game. And in a non EA studio, it's just them doing their own thing, and these are people that were with Dice for a decade or more. And I'm I can feel the energy in the podcast hyping up right now. And the guy, there's a reason I didn't remember the name of the
Yeah.
dev team, because I immediately shot it out of my brain in disgust. And the guy they put in charge of it is the guy who said, if you don't like it, don't buy it, and called the people who wanted to play Battlefield 5 stupid.
Ah,
So
That's
yeah,
of all the people from Dice to take, that's
I
your man right there.
know.
That's your man. That's who you want.
Yeah. I can see that.
Good stuff.
So-
Good stuff.
I guess we'll see whatever happens out of that.
yeah.
Okay, so on to some topical news. We did get some news that the Medium has already recouped its development costs.
Oh, that's
Hooray.
good.
So
Heck yeah.
we don't know what the spread of that is between Game Pass and sales, but yeah, we're planning to talk about the Medium in just a moment. So
I will
interesting.
say, last bit of news. Speaking of recouping costs, I recently also heard that Microsoft has made back all of the money from its
Yes.
Bethesda
Oh,
acquisition
yeah.
twice over, which is
Oh.
pretty insane. Actually, that's actually kind of shocking.
It
What was
it
it?
kind of
13
makes
not million,
sense.
billion?
I
So
think
it's
I think
7
it's in the
billion, wasn't it?
billions. Yeah,
It was 7
billions.
billion. Yeah.
It kind of makes sense though, because wasn't this the Series S and X, wasn't this the biggest like console launch for Microsoft like ever?
Oh, was it?
I'm pretty sure I saw that somewhere.
I think
And I remember
it's
being
been the biggest console launch for every console ever, because they sold out all their stock, right? Like you
And,
can't
and
buy
the
them.
Switch and the Switch is still out selling them. Hey!
Well, because the Switch has like a stock has widely available stock, so that's not
Right, right.
surprising.
No,
being
I just
scalped.
it's still funny though. Oh well.
Okay, so as always, we'd like to give out an award on this show. Wow,
do.
that
My
was
God.
still a
I
little
don't-
Wait, we're
fanfare.
already at award time?
I mean, the
gasped
award
when
the award
Discord
just shows up
expression
at a
picked
random
up.
time, you know?
Oh, okay.
There is no such thing as a set award time.
Okay,
Yeah,
I thought it
we
was
got
at the
rid of
end.
the set award
Uh,
time. It's everywhere now. Which means, you know what else is everywhere? It's what's the Double Radio Gamescast? What's the worst or weirdest game studio name?
Oh.
So I got 3 game studio names that I want you to, out of the 3 of them, tell me which one you like the least. So we got Bloober Team, which made the medium.
It's so unfortunate.
Instant winner.
So Bloober Team, we got a company called Daft Co.
It's called what?
Daft Co. Just Daft Co.
Okay.
Like Daft Punk?
Yes.
Yeah. I was about
Daft
to
Co.
say.
Like they're daft, you know. And then we have Goo.
Well.
It's a goo game.
Oh, I love Goo.
What has Goo made?
So
Yeah,
Goo,
what have Goo, Daft, and
Goo
Bloober made?
basically made nothing. Goo made Puyo Puyo Tetris CD 2
What
and,
do you mean?
and
Nothing.
Mono Monogatari, which are some weird Sega Saturn Japanese games. They ported games to the Sega Saturn, so they ported Gus Atelier Marie to the Sega Saturn. They're not around anymore. They died in the 1990s, so it's been
dear.
a while.
Rip Goo.
And then yeah, we got Daft Co, which, you know, I'm not actually sure if they made anything at all.
That's a shame.
They of course. Here's what they made. They made a Back to the Future licensed side scroller for the Super Famicom.
Of course.
Oh.
I think that game's terrible.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
it really looks like it. So we got three really poor names, and then of course Bloober Team is the medium's developers.
I don't.
Unfortunate.
I just
name.
don't like to
Oh.
say
Don't like
Bloober
that.
Team.
I
Well-
don't like it.
It's memorable,
Certainly.
It sticks in your head, probably for the reasons they don't want it to.
but
But
hey,
it does.
does Goo stick more or less?
Goo
Goo-
sticks to my head a lot.
It is Goo.
Oh no!
I just love
I
that.
swear I
Goo
didn't
is a
mean it like that
studio.
at first.
All right. Okay, so Brett, which one of these 3 studios do you like the name of the least?
Okay, so there is a difference between having the worst name and liking the name the least.
Okay, actually, yeah, I'm gonna say, which one do you think has the most unfortunate name?
The most unfortunate
There
name.
we go.
Okay,
Yeah.
well that changes everything. And I'm gonna have to go with Goo. I don't think literally any project that Goo created, if I knew that Goo made it, I wouldn't be able to take it seriously. Like you kind of already get like that sort of thing with Bloober Team, but Goo is like Bloober Team times like 1,000. It's Goo.
All right, Wyatt.
I want to go with Goo just because of what Alex said.
Hop on the Goo train.
All right.
on the
However, I will say one thing in terms of a Bloober Team, I do find it kind of strange that they're making this very serious sort of
Oh, yeah.
atmospheric horror game by a team called Bloober Team.
Like, I could see Bloober Team making Fall Guys.
Yes,
That
that's what it sounds
Equates
like.
together in my mind. Bloober Team making the medium and Layers of Fear does not.
See,
Yeah.
when I first heard you say Bloober, I thought you said Bluebird Team, which that
That's
would
not-
seem fine.
Which would be
That's- yeah.
I'm pretty sure
graceful,
that's
elegant, even.
I
Yeah.
feel like that's actually an animation. No, that's Blue Point.
Blue
Yeah,
Point.
Blue Point.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So Alex,
elegant, graceful.
are you feeling gooey, or are you gonna join
I'm
the
hot.
bloopers?
I am the conductor of the goo train, Ryan. I am
Oh,
driving it
course.
to its destination.
Bold words. from
And of
the
course, I am the
conductor.
one shoveling coal.
Anytime you open your mouth today, it's just gold.
Oh.
Yep, and I'm the one shoveling coal into your goo, Alex. So let's go all the way.
Are we unanimous goo right now?
I think we're unanimously gooey. So
Oh,
How
we're
is it-
team unanimous
awesome.
goo.
Well, all right, here's my question. How is it spelled? Is it
goo,
just
Goo.
regular- Okay.
Just goo.
But of course, it's a
I would've
GOO
hated it-
exclamation point.
Okay, that
Oh.
brings it right back.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
So
would it
it's-
have been worse if they had
so
spelled it
it's
just
goo!
regular goo, or if they'd done some stupid spelling like GUE or something like that?
See, I was thinking that too. I'm just like, oh no, they made it French.
They made it bougie. They made
Oh.
it bougie.
Bougie goo. Oh no.
Hate.
Poor 1990s game development studio in Japan. All right.
Don't
knew
hate
that-
on the
Who
hate on
knew
the bougie
that
goo.
all these years
right?
later,
You hopped
they're
on
going to
this
be
train.
picked on by a small gaming podcast. Poor people.
Poor goo.
Poor guys. Poor fellas. I almost feel
Alright.
sorry for them.
Okay. That means we can now talk about video games. Like actual video that we played.
That's crazy.
At least a little bit.
Or in some cases, barely played, which I will
Or
get onto.
struggled with.
Mm.
Because, it's me. It's your boy.
Don't
I can never
worry,
have
Wyatt.
just a nice,
You
pleasant-
actually weren't alone this time.
Wow!
For once.
What a rough,
Wow.
that weirdly makes me happy for some reason.
So,
It probably shouldn't.
yeah, we're talking about the Medium, which is the whole Bloober team. We already went on about Bloober team. The Medium's their latest game. It's on Game Pass. You can check it out. It's been a little bit controversial. Not controversial. More like people are kind of split on whether or not they like it. For some good reasons, but we'll get into that. So we've all played at least a little bit of it. Aside from Alex, I don't think Alex has had the chance, but
Yeah.
the rest of us have played a little bit of it, and I think we get some first impressions. So, Brett, I think you are the one who has definitely played the most so far,
Yes.
which is not necessarily saying a ton.
No, not really. I think I'm like a third of the way into it because it's not a very long game. I only know this because one of the streamers I'm subscribed to, like, I just looked at the length of their video and it was just like 7.5 hours or something. So I think I'm like three-ish hours in. So not a very long
Okay.
game.
Feels like a good
Yeah, I
length
don't-
for a horror game, though.
I've never really like subscribed to the idea of just like, oh, like if the game's not like 95 hours long, like it's just not worth your time. Like, no, I kind of just
a
like,
game's
short and
experience
sweet.
is quantified by its like length and not
Exactly.
the actual
Yeah,
quality.
although I
No,
could
I'm there with
see
you.
I could see it driving people a little rough if they don't have Game Pass because the game is like $50. It is a
It isn't full
$50
price,
release. I mean, it's
No.
$10 less, but that's
But
still
yeah,
$20
it's getting there.
less now.
no. We're not. $70 is not the price of games yet. We need a few more games to come out at $70 for that to become
I
regular.
see.
We haven't hit that point yet.
We are getting there.
We're getting close, but not quite yet. I think as soon as COVID clears up, we're probably there. But for now, I think we're still at the $60 point because, like, we got Destruction All Stars at $70, but Destruction All Stars is also a PlayStation Plus game on launch. So, curious
It's got
situation.
that going for it, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So Medium, I think I've had the chance to play about an hour and a half of it. So a fair portion of that was wrestling with the settings and whatnot. So I think we might want to get the technical issues out of the way first.
Yeah.
So Wyatt, why don't you go over the issues just briefly that you ran into?
Oh, I would love to. All right, so it started off. It was a game that was not running very well, but it was, in its defense, kind of running on like max settings. So I was like, all right, I got to turn that down a little bit. Then the game crashed, and then I was like, oh, that's kind of funky. So I just kind of left it for a while because when it crashed, it didn't actually save my settings. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna have to, deal with 20 to 30 frames per second on 4K with ray tracing. So like, whatever. so I was just running with that for a bit, and then I got very annoyed. So I really did try and just figure it out, and it just kept crashing. And I had a lot to do today, so I was like, screw this. I am not going to deal with this right now. I've got other things to do right now. So that was my experience, was just trying to change the settings and then not actually having made any progress because the game would just crash. So
How
yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I
No,
think.
it's great. Honestly, I expect nothing less.
Oh yeah, of course. As everyone knows, Wyatt has a history of technical issues on the show. So
Always.
Although
Refer
this
back
time-
to the Tsushima episodes.
yeah, the Tsushima episodes were real wild. But this time, Wyatt's not alone. I've also had some technical issues, albeit different ones, which is a little concerning
That is weird.
as well.
Mm.
I haven't had crashes, but what I have had is the game. And for reference, I'm playing on PC with a 2070 and a 3.9 gigahertz CPU, so decent specs. Not the best, but decent specs that should be able to play the game fairly well. And for the entire first 20-minute intro to the game, it was fine. I was getting a solid 60 pretty much all the time on pretty high settings with DLSS on. Unfortunately, as soon as the game's main mechanics started booting in, I began running into a number of issues. First of all, occasionally the frame rate would get really, really low, which is weird because it's super inconsistent and it doesn't seem to be paired with the amount of detail on the screen. So it's really, really hard to tell what's causing it. I don't think it's my CPU. I think it's GPU bound, but it seems like at some points the game just tanks to low tens.
Yeah. Which is
Low
weird because
teens.
I wouldn't say it's the most graphically demanding game.
It
that
looks
I've ever
good, really good sometimes. But the weird thing is
Sometimes,
I've been in areas with tons of graphical detail and it was running perfectly fine with the dual realities open. And then I turn around and go down a hallway and suddenly the game can't get more than 12 frames a second. So I don't know what's happening there. And the worst problem was stuttering. So I would get basically every time that pulse would happen and you'd go into the spirit world essentially, it would stutter for a solid few seconds. It's just super weird. It feels like it's loading things in, but not asynchronously, so it's all just loading at once and can't handle it. So it would be a solid 2 or 3 seconds of just the game not moving. So yeah, that's consistently been happening basically every time I enter a new area that has the spirit world stuff. So I don't understand what's causing that either. I'm curious to know. I think this is probably where it's showing that Bloober Team is not a AAA studio. They're at best a AA horror studio. So it seems like a few of their resources probably weren't put on the PC port. None of us have a Series X, so we can't test it on that. But yeah, I've been running into some issues.
Which does it's got me thinking about this is kind of Microsoft's first big exclusive for this generation, out of the gate. And so it is kind of odd to put all of that on not a game that I would say is bad, but just on a game that doesn't really feel
because they weren't intending to. They wanted it to be Halo.
They wanted it to be
Right.
good old Master Chief, but he's
Yeah.
not doing
That's
so hot
true.
right now.
He's a little sleepy right now. He'll be
Yeah,
here later.
COVID really hit him too. So
It's
just taking some time off. All right.
he said
especially in January.
Yeah.
he said wake him when we needed him, and then we tried, and he just told us to give him a few more minutes, I guess.
Yeah, he said wake me up when December ends. December 2021. So we'll see him eventually.
All he wanted to do was all he wanted us to do was wake him up inside.
Yep. All right. Tangents aside, I did have one other issue with the medium, which is where I kind of gave up today. I didn't have a lot of time to play it, and I couldn't play it until today, so I was trying to shoehorn it in between meetings and whatnot. And then I got probably about an hour and a half in, and I actually was enjoying myself a lot. We'll talk about what we actually think of the game later on. the weirdest issue I ran into is that the game, I tried to open a menu to look at an item I found, right? Because I found an item that you could read, and I accidentally pressed the skip button because it's also the pick it up button. So I picked it up but double pressed the button by accident, and it skipped past it. And that put it in my like log, but for the items you can read, when you pick them up, they vanish from the world. So you can't then look at them again. I tried every button on the controller, and none of them could bring me to that menu. I don't know what happened. So then I went into the like settings menu to look around and see if it was bound somewhere. I couldn't find it. Backed out, but instead of backing me to where I was in the world, it backed me back to the main menu.
Oh.
And that's where I gave up for the day. Like,
Wow.
that's enough. It was a weird sequence of events that happened there, compounded by the fact that I'm playing with a PS4 controller on my PC, which means the button prompts are all in Xbox prompts.
Would you rate the PC port as like medium quality?
Oh my God.
I don't know what the problem is, Wyatt. I don't get it. You could say the port might be a little bit haunted.
I was gonna say that about your computer, and then you said it first. Oh.
So yeah, the PC port, maybe give it like a week or two to pan out and see if it's things that are actually issues. And then that's not even mentioning, like, Wyatt and I both had a sequence of events trying to get this game installed.
Oh, yeah, I was going to bring that up. So I went to go open, because I have we both use the Xbox app to like manage all of
Well, you have
stuff.
to use Game Pass.
Yeah, it's like the Game Pass launcher or whatever, right? So I go to open it and I just get a black screen. Like the application opens and then it's just a black screen. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So I try, reopening it a couple times, restarting my computer.
And of course, I thought this was a Wyatt issue because he's known for having technical issues.
Understandably, as it usually is.
And then he reminds me that the medium's out, and I wanted to play it. So I tried opening the app. Same thing happened.
Yeah. So then we moseyed on over to the Microsoft store to see what was going on. Maybe there was an update. There wasn't. And then every time I would hit launch or something like that, the entire Microsoft store just stopped working.
And same here.
Yep. And so then eventually we figured out that there needed to be this big boy.
There was a Windows update that hadn't been automatically scanned for.
Right.
And because Game Pass is a Microsoft thing that needs to be connected to the internet, they also require you to be on the latest Windows version to use it.
Now, can you say that maybe we should have updated before trying it? Okay, maybe. I would also argue that you shouldn't have to do that in order for your applications to work. So, because it's not just one that wasn't working, it was two. We couldn't install it from the Microsoft store. We couldn't open the Xbox app at all. It just wasn't happening. So
the Xbox app is horrible. The console companion they used to have was like fine. It was like good, even, dare I say.
Actually, I like the UI of the Game Pass app when it works.
When it works, it's fine, but
it just
takes like
stops working.
Like Steam can pull up like 18 billion games in like 10 seconds, and the Game Pass app takes like multiple minutes sometimes to load like 100.
It's calculating all of its algorithms with an abacus, so you just got to give it.
Just got to give it a sec.
It's the lofty 2 frames a second launch. So I don't even know what that means.
Both of them.
I had a joke and then I said frames per second instead of what I thought I was gonna say, and it didn't work anymore. So
good job.
All right, let's talk about tech issues aside. What we actually think of the game. So I don't know how far you got in, Wyatt.
I just barely got to like a little bit past like when you actually get what's the building called that you're told to
the
go
Neva
to?
Resort.
Yeah, I had just barely gotten in, and then I was like, yeah, screw this.
Okay,
I'm not dealing with this right now.
So you got far enough to see the like dual reality mechanic.
Yeah, and a little bit of like the combining your various like inventory items together. Like I saw a good amount before I quits for the day. Yeah.
All right. So Brett, you didn't have technical issues, so why don't you enlighten us as to what your thoughts on the first chunk of the medium are?
I did. I had tech issues, but not like the game never crashed and it wasn't like hitching and stuff. My issue was specifically because I was trying to stream it for people on Discord, and I play my games in windowed specifically so that I can just easily just go over screen share and then go back to the game without having to fumble around and accidentally hit something that's going to close it and blow up my laptop in front of me. But like the windowed mode is like fake windowed. It's not even like borderless windowed. Like you can't even like drag it around anywhere. It's just stuck in the middle of the screen in
Ooh.
the the dimensions that it's there. So I don't know. I feel like that must be bugged. I feel like that's not intentional because that's just so stupid.
There are a few games that do that when you do borderless window. They'll just like sit in the middle of the screen and you can't move them.
And then I couldn't stream it anyway because it just showed like a dimmed out like Discord screen whenever I went to stream that specific window. So I just had to do the whole screen, which meant the people
No
had to watch
sound.
without sound. But anyway, in terms of like gameplay, story stuff so far, I am super like not like crazy into it. Like this is the best thing ever, but I'm like really into it. Like I think it's pretty sick so far. It's not and it seems to be like unanimous that this isn't the scariest game to ever come out.
Which
It's
I like. I'm down for that.
it's scary enough for me. That's for
It's
sure.
legitimately scary.
It made me definitely
It's more psychological horror than
yes,
which
more
is what Layers of Fear
psychological.
was as well.
Lots of anxiety, and the parts where that does build up to like a very well earned jump scare or the closest thing that the game has to a boss fight so far. It like I have twice soiled some pantaloons while playing. They got me really good.
Jeez. Wow.
Because I feel like what were you gonna say, Wyatt?
I don't know what to take away from that sentence more, the fact that you still soil your pants as an adult or the fact that you still wear pantaloons.
Well, that's neither here nor there. Kind of weird.
You
You're
could
kinda,
say
like,
it's
attacking
in
my
between here and there, just like the medium.
Oh.
Mm.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you
I gotta
should be.
apologize for that one. That was bad.
Jeez.
Yeah, we deserve an apology.
You could say I was reaching so far it crossed two realms.
I'm having an out of body experience right now.
All right.
My game
I hope you
crashed.
know that the more anyone makes puns, just the longer my lifespan becomes, and the longer you have to
The
deal
more
with
you're
me.
charging Alex up to make more awful puns.
Well,
and
I'm
stuff.
just
Alex's
charging him
power
up
level
with a
just keeps
spirit
going
blast.
up.
It's like you guys remember that scene in the or multiple scenes, I guess, in the first Wonder Woman movie where the supposed villain breaks that blue vial and just sniffs it and like it goes all throughout his body. That's me every time anyone makes a pun.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
Okay, but back to Poland real quick. Because I don't want to. I'm like trying to tread on like thin ice here because I'm really excited. But I don't want to spoil anything for people that do want to try it out. Um, they like the artist that is like kind of it inspired the visuals of the game is a late Polish painter by the name of Zdzisław Besinski, which I'm not going to tell you how to spell
His
it because
art
I don't
is
know either.
amazing.
It is like it's insane. The amount of detail that like literally just look at a screenshot like of the spirit world, the dream realm from the medium, and just imagine someone painting it with like exactly that much fidelity, if not more. Like this guy
Ooh.
was beyond skilled. And Alex, you'd probably like him, so I will definitely
Yeah,
send you stuff from him after this is over.
yeah.
Like I never realized how horrifying it would be to like be in one of those paintings. Um, and you literally like you do get that feeling. And when you are being chased by something that looks like it was designed by someone that made those hellscapes, like oh my god, it is horrible. And as someone who doesn't play horror games all the time, like that really got me. Got
Yeah.
some noise complaints.
Yeah, I'd throw my stuff in as someone who tends to not like horror games. I'm at least liking it a lot so far. I'm hesitant because I think a lot of the game aspects of this game kind of bring it down. I think like the dumb contrivance of using like the spirit blast
Yeah, I didn't know that
is
was
just
a
like
no,
thing.
that's a
super
move.
weird.
Spirit Blast? What?
It's because you go up to something in the spirit world that's like charged with
Got a blast?
spiritual energy, and then you go to like something like a breaker box or like a switch or something that needs power, and then in the spirit world you can release the spiritual energy and like a pulse or something, and it'll like recharge it. And I guess that's supposed to be like, oh, like ghosts like screw around with
He's going
like light
ghost. It's
bulbs
Danny
and
Phantom.
stuff.
Like
It's he is. I repeat, he is not going ghost. He is not going ghost.
Because
Yeah, I
she's
thought that was
Danny
weird
Phantom.
too.
yeah, Marianne's Danny Phantom. It honestly feels like I think the game is at its best when it's acting like it's not a game, or it's using the like
Yeah.
dual realities to its advantage. But there's a lot of times where I kind of feel like the dual realities like don't add anything, and the game mechanics can actively detract from it. Like the Spirit Blast just feels completely unnecessary. Like you could easily have just tied that into like the out of body experience thing, and I think it would have been more consistent with what the game is. It just doesn't feel like it fits particularly, especially because like there's this goofy UI text that comes on screen when you learn how to do it that kind of just takes you out of all the really cool
Goofy?
visuals going on around. Or just like the
Uh-oh.
game shows up on your screen is like hold the right trigger to do a spirit blast in all capitals.
It's
Got a
if
blast.
it literally just like even if it just said like hold right trigger, like it just don't
Yeah,
call
you
it a
don't
spirit
need the
blast.
text. Like at no
Don't call
point
it a
should you
spirit
ever name that
blast.
ability a spirit blast. And then you get
'Cause-
like a spirit shield later, and the spirit shield is even goofier because like it didn't do anything. From all I can tell, I'm not very far in the game, but a prompt basically comes up that says spirit shield. Press the button. You press the button, and she goes, "I didn't know I could do that," and then just keeps walking as if nothing happened. I'm like, what?
it does do something. Because
I mean, I figure it does, yeah, but it's like her lack of reaction to it is a little weird to me.
I like the spirit shield more than I like the spirit blast. I think the shield works.
I think
better because
conceptually, I think the spirit shield fits better.
it's because it also like you need it more, and it can't really be like replaced by something because you got to get through a wall of bugs. Okay, that's not the most spoilery thing in the world. And if it was like Resident Evil, you get like a minigun or something that's like mounted at the end of the hallway that you get like all the separate parts for from going through a mansion that just has minigun parts in it because Resident Evil, and then you just mow down all the bugs and then you can go through. Great. But this is more on like the Silent Hill side of things. You don't really have like offensive stuff, so having like a shield to get through it, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Having a blast, however, to
Although I know
activate
what's
things.
really going to kill the game for me is if there's a moment where they have a pseudo boss fight and I have to go around a room charging my spirit blast and then unleashing it on a boss. I'm going to be furious if that happens.
At least not yet. So we're
I
safe
don't
for
think
now.
it will, because Bloober Team tends to avoid like enemies like that in their games.
Yeah.
Which is something I like about them. Is it's the kind of horror game that I like Amnesia, where generally speaking, the enemies aren't a thing to be fought.
Yeah.
They're like
Something
a
I
thing
like about
that's
Bloober
a
Team is
wall.
that they aren't named Goo.
Yeah, that of course that adds to it.
That's yes.
It's not a high bar to clear, but dang it, they did clear it.
They did
Barely, but they did.
Something specific. It's very weird and specific for me, but I think I want to point it out. With games like this, because I'm in the back of my mind, I was constantly compared to Until Dawn, which may not be the fairest comparison in the world, but with its like kind of point and clicky kind of mechanics and a lot of like the fixed camera angles and stuff, it just kind of reminds me of that.
You mean a game like Silent Hill?
I have not played Silent Hill, so
it's taking a lot of tropes from horror games.
It is,
both of them are.
Okay, but that's my direct comparison, right? And for me, what was really important when I was playing Until Dawn was how natural the characters were moving around in the environment in terms of like the camera angle and making it look like like camera angles you would see in a movie. And I felt like that wasn't happening here, and so it was very distracting to see a character that didn't feel like she was walking around in the environment properly. It's kind of hard to describe.
I get
but
what you're saying.
it
I
takes
think
me it takes me out of this kind of game a lot.
a lot of it has what I would like to call like the Resident Evil 1 effect, where you're walking down a room, the camera angle changes, and you like readjust your position on the thumbstick, and you start moving in a different direction.
Yep.
And it just makes it look really goofy. And I think how a lot of the like cutscenes and everything are really well done in this game. Like there's some moments where like there's really, really clever framing. And they're utilizing the fact that they have two screens essentially to their advantage.
Which I haven't really run into.
You're a little bit before them, I think.
Yeah, because the only time I've really seen it happen is when she's in the office at the beginning, right? And I was looking at it and I was like, okay, I guess it's kind of cool that I'm seeing two different perspectives, but it really wasn't doing anything for me outside of like the kind of shallow novelty of it for me. And I'm sure that they're going to take much advantage of it much more as I get more into the game. But like my first impression of it was like, okay, it didn't really do much for me. The difference was that like, oh, okay, there was someone that she's actually interacting with in one screen and not in the other, and I just didn't think there was anything like visually interesting about that.
Yeah,
Like, it kind of wore thin really quickly for me.
The bits that get weird with me are when there are the cutscenes with characters in them, and you're interacting in one place in like one screen, and the other screen is just doing nothing.
Well,
like I think they wanted an effect to happen there, but it just doesn't really look particularly interesting.
Well, here's the other thing too, is that they each kind of reality that you're looking at has slightly different camera angles, but it's inconsistent. It's like it's either sometimes they're exactly the same, and then other times they're different, and then other times they're just off enough where it's like slightly different. And it didn't seem like there was any kind of intentional. It just felt weird. Like it just felt like they were kind of eyeballing it and they couldn't get it matched up exactly, and it was just kind of distracting. Like I don't know if there was something they were trying to go with for that, but I couldn't. It was just weird.
Yeah, I haven't noticed that either.
In that first scene, it just seems like the camera angle is placed in a slightly different angle, and it was
I think that's
just
intentional.
Weird. Right, but why? Like I didn't understand the point of it. I guess I don't know. It was just.
I think they're just doing camera tricks. I don't think there's necessarily a point to it or needs to be a point to it. I do think at some points it's a little weird, but
I don't know. I just the aspect where it kind of splits into and maybe I just need to get further in, but it really hasn't done anything super interesting for me yet.
Yeah, you just need to get. I would say like play 10 more minutes of it and you're there.
Yeah, if you stopped at the Neva Resort, then you were like right. Like
you are like a minute away.
I got through that little crack in the wall where you kind of have to like Uncharted style kind of like slip.
Yeah, you're not there yet. You're like 2 or 3 minutes away from it happening. Like it really starting to go crazy with the whole 2 reality thing. But yeah, I do think there are certainly scenarios where like when you do something or when a cutscene is playing, I think a lot of people are just going to focus on the scene, the side of the scene where things are happening. And what I'm hoping is that at some point they kind of play on that expectation, and then things get like weird in the part you're not looking at. That's what I'm hoping, is that they're conditioning you to do that for a reason. Because that would be really clever. But if they're not, then it's just kind of a negative. So
that's what I felt for a few things, is that like I feel like they're like the loops that they get you into for the gameplay, like I feel like they're building up to not like a huge like earth-shattering thing, but just like something's gonna happen with them, because like it's just like classic survival horror. Like, you know, like you pick up the item and you immediately get into your inventory to read it, right? And it shuts out the rest of the game world and pauses everything, because that's just it's menus. I'm literally waiting for the point where like you get out of the menu and like something in the room is different, or there's just like someone standing there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just me being like paranoid, but I really feel like that's gonna happen.
No, that's good stuff. I want that to happen.
I don't, but I do.
And based on layers of fear, like they know how to do that, so I could certainly see it happening.
And that's, you go first.
Go ahead.
That's kind of like worth pointing out that like the horror that is there isn't like cheap shot like whoa there's blood and like her bones like jutting out where it's not supposed to be and like oh my god like a jump scare showed up like after the noise went quiet like there's no cheap shots. This is like this is cerebral, like slow burn kind of stuff. Like this is more The Shining than it is uh like a Saw or something like that, you
It's
know.
Silent
The
Hill.
stuff that
It's
makes
like
It
you
is Silent
shake.
Hill.
yeah.
Are we talking the stuff that makes you shake with existential fear when you try to go to bed at night?
Yeah, of
Yes,
course.
this is because this is it's been a while since I've been like, oh, I probably shouldn't play this game because I'm going to bed soon. And that's why I did not get to play a lot of this game
Oh,
because
Are you
every time I
telling
sat
me?
down, I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't play this game. I'm going to bed soon.
Are you
oh, I
telling me
need to get this.
if it's like The Shining? Are you telling me that Jack Nicholson is going to poke his head out a door at some point? Because that would be
Yeah.
great.
I hope nothing pokes its head out of any door in that entire damn resort, Wyatt, because if it does, I am going to throw my laptop out the window 194.
And I will say
Oh,
that the one thing
yikes.
this game has like really gotten me to reappreciate is fixed camera angles. I think
Oh,
some of
yeah.
them have been really good. There's been a few that I'm not a huge fan of like they'll put an angle so you're like super zoomed out. And I'm not a huge fan of when it does that because it's a little harder to like tell where you're going. But when the camera angles look good, I think they look really good. So I like that they're using fixed camera angles to their advantage here.
Yeah.
Especially with the like dual reality manipulation. Although I'm less a fan of the dual reality stuff because at least as far as I'm in right now, it kind of feels like it could have just been a toggle. They haven't really done anything with the fact that you're in place in two places, but I could totally see them doing something with that. So it's gonna depend on the rest of the game, I think.
I think a little bit beyond where you are, there's like some puzzles that aren't that they're not like Portal crazy or anything, but they do like force you to interact more between the two
I've done the first like out of
realities.
body thing.
Yeah, like after that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I will say we are, I think, all coming at this from the angle of people that have Game Pass.
Yes.
So we are not actively spending money on this game, which I think is a fairly important factor because there's been a lot of like mixed reception to this. Of some people really, really like it and some people really don't. I think the things that are going to make you not like this game is if you don't like quote unquote walking simulators, you probably aren't going to have a great time because a lot of this game is just walking and like exploring. And if you're not into that, which is totally valid, if you're not into that, this may not be the horror game for you.
The other thing
But
I
if you
will point
are,
out,
it's a lot of fun.
the other thing I will point out, what might turn some people off, and I know that this is a smaller studio, so this is probably a concession that they had to make, but I still think it is kind of an issue where when you're grabbing things and you're combining them together, the fact that when you're looking at something in the space and it just kind of like appears, like for instance when you go into the morgue in the beginning and you're pulling out that one body, I'm not going to say whose it is, but you're pulling out that one body to put like a tie on, right, in the clip. The tie just kind of, although it's not a good example, but there are other examples where, did anyone do the when you did you develop the picture at the very
Yeah,
beginning?
I did.
Yeah.
Like in the, it just kind of, there's no, things are just kind of placed there. It's not like Marianne goes over and places it in. They just kind of appear. And for something that's very atmospheric, it kind of takes me out of it when things are just kind of being moved around without her actually doing it. If that makes sense, I didn't
Yeah,
explain
I
that
think that's
very
gonna
well.
heavily depend on your tolerance for
Yeah.
gameness.
But that's kind of what I'm saying is that I feel like those small little details and animations are important for a game like this to keep the atmosphere.
I don't think they are. I think
I
they
don't
would
think so
actually.
either.
Yeah, I think it would make those sequences take way too long.
And I think that because you mentioned this is a smaller studio, that's like a lot more taxing to have like a new individual like animation for every single like place
And
you're in.
I'm not even asking for like the full for the full animation, because like I complain about that a lot with Red Dead 2 where it just shows the entire process of doing something. I'm not asking that, but I'm asking for something a little bit more than just having it just like pop into the environment out of
Well,
nowhere.
it
I don't
basically
know.
goes like first person. Like I'm okay with that. I don't mind that. pretty much at all. In fact, yeah, I think I'm with Brett in that if they did have more of animations to that, it would just probably feel out of place. Because I think what would happen is if they did the halfway measure, that would be worse than not having it. It would make you either really want it to be a full animation or really want it to not be there because it just looks weird.
It's because like let's say it was like a
Agree, but
for the photos, like if it was just like a photo like fluttering down or something, or just like the paper like mushing to the shape of being reflattened on like a table, and then it's like, oh, that looks stupid. Where's the hand putting that down? Because then it's not real enough. I don't know. I just think
Yeah,
it's
I think
better
it's
that
going to
there's
heavily
nothing
depend
there.
on who you are, if that bothers you or not. I think for people that are generally fans of horror games, that probably won't be a thing, since in almost every horror game ever is like that. Like that's Amnesia's like that. In the horror games I can think of where you combine items, they're all like that.
It's Resi. Even like
Even the
I
AAA ones.
I've been kind of like fighting myself with like thinking like, oh, like why are we back at like even though they do them really well, like why are we back at like these camera angles, like what happened to like full 3D? It's like I'm like fighting whether I hate to be like old hat or not, and be like, well, that's how Silent Hill is, and those like games are regarded as some of the greatest
Like
of all
most
time by
cinematic
certain
ever.
people. Like, yeah. So I don't. If you're gonna go atmospheric, like take stuff from them, and if it's the same as them, and it's not ruining anything, then hey, I don't know, you did a good job.
Yeah, I think a lot of it just depends on the situation. I do think the one complaint that I think Wyatt and I probably both share that is really grating on me is that I remember back when we did our reaction, like our recap of the Xbox show, and when they showed this game, my immediate reaction was, "This is Jesse Faden."
it's distracting.
I still feel like this is Jesse Faden.
It's distracting. I'm looking at like the cover art for it on like my Xbox app right now,
And for those who don't know, Jesse Faden, main character of Control.
but
Just to confirm.
it's way too similar. It's so
It's not even like in the
distracting.
visuals alone. Like she does look vaguely like Jesse. I don't think it's the same, but enough
But her
to
like
where
attire
it's
is similar.
yeah. Like
too.
the jacket is what really gets me. The jacket feels exactly like a costume you can get in Control, and I think the way she tends to narrate what she's doing is almost to the letter the same as Jesse.
Yeah.
So
Well, and also just the fact that there's like in-game dialogue and then her narration as well, which feels very similar to
I don't mind the narration, but I think they could have given it a little more of a personality.
but it feels the same. Like where it interjects where they kind of talk similarly with like a similar cadence and stuff
Exactly.
like
That's
that.
what I'm saying is the problem. I think they could have given her her own personality a little more. Because Jessie in Control talks in a very specific way, and there are reasons why she talks like that are actually explained. And I think in this case, it doesn't fit as well as they probably thought it would. And I would have liked Marianne to be a little bit more distinct, I think. I don't know if, Brett, you feel the same way or not, but
I I I don't know whether to say if I agree or not, because I feel like kind of like in a completely different direction. Like I've never played Control, so I don't have that comparison to draw to. And I think like as someone that doesn't like see, the image in the back of their head, like constantly being like, this is this other character, this is this other character. Like I think she does a fine job, and I like the vocal performances of all the characters in this game so far. Um, but because the game takes place in Poland, and it's not like you're not a tourist visiting Poland. You are you are a Pole in Poland. So I don't want like some idiot from New Jersey like me like faking a Polish accent to do it either. But it would be nice to have seen some like Polish dialogue or something to like get you into the setting
yeah.
more. I think if it's missing anything in terms of like immersion, it's that, because like the rest of the soundscape, which we haven't even mentioned yet, um, like is great, but the only thing that really is dragging it down immersion wise for me is the fact that this character that like has like lines that have personality sometimes is not sounding like she's from the place that she's supposed to be from.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing to like fixate on, but I just keep being like, it would be nice if like I could like have the actual like pronunciations of these places and people whose name looks like someone just like rolled their hand across the keyboard, but I just have this person speaking with an American accent that's just like kind of doing their best,
Yeah,
which
and I
is
think we
in my
can
opinion very
actually
good.
mention Control with that. Control has a few characters with very distinct like accents.
Fort
Yeah, like
American.
the janitor
janitor.
guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that adds a lot to that game of like location-based things really help.
Accents can do a lot for a lot of things.
Absolutely. Like I think
Immersion, set
It's
dressing.
I
not-
didn't
it's not
get
just
that
the
we were in
writing.
Poland for a while. Like I didn't get we were in Poland until eventually I saw the Niwa thing and I was like, "Oh, that's here." Like it's this place.
And I don't even think they pronounce it as Niwa, right? Don't they pronounce the W with like a as like
Well,
a
yeah,
V?
Yeah,
she
it's
says
Niva.
Neva.
Niva.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is a slight tip off, but again, if you're not really paying attention, you're like, oh, I guess this is just the U.S. or something like that. It's not really portrayed very well.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think it definitely, if you've played Control, Marianne is like obviously not exactly the same character, but it's just the way that she talks about what she does is narrating the exact same way that Jessie narrates herself in Control.
And it doesn't help that she has the same like jacket and jean, just kind of like it's just
And the whole like
visually it's
normal
very
person
similar.
kind of getting ingrained into the like psycho world.
Yeah.
It
And
feels
even-
a lot
and
like
There's a
even from
lot
what
of
I've seen-
similarities.
And even from what I've seen, there's some areas that kind of look like Control, like some environments.
Well, Control
there's
is taking
that as
inspiration
well.
from things that this is also taking inspiration from, so I wouldn't.
I know,
knock it for
but
that,
okay, but it's still like it's still kind of confounding that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's still
Yeah, I don't think that's part of
there.
the problem though. I think if the biggest issue is the way she vocalizes, and that's absolutely not on the actress. I think that's on the directing for the speech.
Mhm.
Feels like it was inspired by that same style of direction. Like I don't know if it was inspired by Control, but the game is like thematically very similar, and has a lot of elements that fit in that same space. So I would be surprised if it wasn't taking from Control. At least some of that inspiration was from there. So it is very noticeable. As someone who's played a lot of Control, especially recently, like it, if I didn't have the two characters side by side and I heard the voices narrating things, I don't know if I'd be able to tell it apart.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be able to tell by the writing which character is which. So, and that's always like a negative to me is when characters are similar enough that by the way they speak, I can't tell them apart. Yeah. But I think overall, I've really enjoyed the first like 2 hours, a little under 2 hours that I got to play.
Yeah, I haven't played a ton, but I haven't been impressed because of the technical issues and just all of the other things that I was talking about.
Yeah, and a lot of the negative reviews I've seen are pretty focused on those tech issues.
Yeah.
So
Same.
there are, of course, exceptions. I think there's a few people that just really don't like the style of puzzle that this game does, in the style of like not doing a lot of direct interaction with many things. It's more of a again like Silent Hill style experience that I think is certainly just not for some people. And I think a lot of those people are being forced to review this game.
Yeah, because it's been a bit since we've had.
Well, because I see
Silent
criticisms of this
Hill.
game that are things that people liked about Silent Hill. And I'm like,
It's
I don't.
so weird.
Yeah, it's a situation where I just go, huh. I'm just not certain. But I think if you have Game Pass, there's no reason not to try the game especially if you're
It's
Andal
kind of
Pro.
hard to argue. Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue at least checking it out.
Because like the visual style alone is just super unique, and the
So
framing of a lot
striking.
of things is great. Because I
I
remember
will
like
say that
go ahead.
The beginning scare in the morgue was quite good with how it used like the
Yeah.
silhouette. That was very
Oh yeah.
well done. That
like
was,
stuff
that
like
was
shadows
very well
moving.
done.
as well as it not being very jump scare heavy, at least so far.
Yeah.
No, it's about atmosphere, which I always prefer over just.
Although I will say, I don't know if you guys share the same complaint. I think my biggest like minor problem with the game right now is that the sound when that like shift between realities happens is so loud compared to everything else.
I can't remember it off the top of my
I had to
head.
turn my sound effects way down because it was like bursting through my headset.
I
Ooh.
don't hate the volume necessarily. I hate the kind of sound that plays.
Yeah,
Because all the other sound design is very like
subtle,
it is yes, subtle and like you could kind of like feel the
atmospheric.
same sort of sounds playing from like a PS1 or something where it's just like kind of synthy, like weird, like distant, like electronic drum hit or something with like some weird things done to it is what made the sound or whatever. But then the the reality split sound plays and it's like your typical like horror movie like trailer jump scare sound but like skipping over itself kind of thing, and it's like, well, I wish it was something like creative over that instead. Like if it was Marianne like screaming in pain over it and that was it, like echoed, that would be a lot more effective than
Yeah,
the kind of sound they have right now.
was just generic like synth electro bass,
Just blah,
basically.
blah, 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 but like really loud.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's good for general impressions of the medium. We'll probably update whenever we get a little bit further along and see if those things change. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely planning on at least playing
Oh yeah,
a fair bit more.
I'm finishing it.
But yeah. So Alex, what have you been playing this week? What's on the Alex
Tell
docket?
us.
We just talked for a while about
Hello.
a game that you don't have the opportunity to play. So
Not yet. Not yet. I have been playing uh two games actually. One of which is Chronos Before the Ashes, which I believe came out somewhat recently, maybe a month ago. Um, it's from Gunfire Games. It's very they've well, I'll keep this kind of short because I also have another game that I've been playing a lot more recently. But they've described it as Zelda meets Dark Souls, and
Oh. Ooh.
I'm tired of games referring to Dark Souls like that. Really. But yeah, yeah, it is. It's good. It's fun. It's good. It has that map design that I really enjoy, where things loop back around with each other, and you can
Mm,
discover secrets and things.
So
So
Alex, I'm curious how much you know about Chronos Before the Ashes, uh, because this game's actually not from right now.
what?
It's an old VR game that
Oh,
has been ported to uh standard controls.
oh, huh.
interesting.
It's also, for those who don't know, Gunfire Games made a Remnant from the Ashes as well. It was a
Which
great
is
game.
quite good. Yeah.
Oh, this looks interesting.
The Darksiders trilogy.
Yeah, of course.
This outfit that they're wearing even kind of
Actually,
reminds me of the
just
starting.
oh yeah, they did do the whole trilogy, didn't they? I thought they didn't do the first one, but they might
I
have.
gotta
I
say,
mean,
Ryan too.
they didn't do the strategy offshoot, I think, or was it a top down?
Yeah,
Well, what was
that was
the
handled by a different thing. It's
yeah,
Darksiders Genesis is a
mm,
top-down shooter.
Genesis? Um, sorry, what were you saying? Okay, I had another, but
Who was saying? Me.
I think you had something, didn't you? What you wanted to say?
I'm looking at some gameplay of Chronos right now, and even the outfit that the player
It
characters are
looks
wearing
Remnant.
kind of reminds me of that starting outfit from from Remnant.
It's got the
And
backpack.
some of the boss designs and like some of the areas kind of look like it too. It's more cartoony, but it's
it's
got that look to it.
I like its style. I like the
Yeah.
visual style.
No, I do too.
Um,
This looks
it's
interesting.
like a mature Fortnite.
Yeah.
um, what was the other game that I was playing was a collection that I got on the Switch recently, which was the Evoland collection, which I'd previously just seen on mobile. But the collection is games 1 and 2, I finished the first one. It was it was really fun. I loved the idea of the things you're collecting in chests instead of items being upgrades to the game itself. Slowly gaining
It's a super
more and
unique
more.
because I've seen it before.
Cool.
It's a super unique. So like you open a chest and you go from like an 8-bit RPG to a 16-bit RPG and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah,
It's
and
super
and
cool.
the first game ends at about the Final Fantasy VII style of graphics. Like the textures are a little bit more detailed. So they have that in HD, but it's the same pre-rendered backgrounds, overworld, random encounters, things. It's a nice homage to that. Um, and that game was about like 5 hours long if you're trying to complete everything. But nice little bite-sized
And
game.
generally pretty cheap as well. They're not
Oh yeah,
pricey games.
the whole bundle was $5.
Yeah,
The
definitely worth a
second
playthrough.
game, oh wow, the second game, um, feels like an homage to Chrono Trigger.
Ooh.
Which is always a compliment.
Always
Yeah.
a good thing, yeah.
It's an homage to Chrono Trigger in its story, gameplay. It has the same. It has a bit of the same evolution as you go through. I don't want to spoil too much, but then also what had me hook, line, and sinker into the game, even though it's just a little nod and probably not going to be done again um, in it, or not going to be a mechanic that they revisit. They had Professor Layton style puzzles, which just completely had me smitten for it because it's been so long since I've had brain teasers in a game, which was nice
Good.
because that's just something I'm hot for.
Yeah, I definitely want to echo the Evoland recommendation. Those games are really, really fun. And great little indie RPG love letters, basically.
Yeah.
Just about the genre as a whole, which is always a fun thing to play through if you've got a few hours to kill.
I'm about 8 hours into the second one, I think now, maybe 9.
So I want to. We're gonna save, I think, what the rest of us have been playing for later because we've been going for a while. But I do
Oh
want
wow.
to Brett. I want to pitch an idea to you, Brett.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, having played partly through Ace Combat 7 now, and
Ooh.
having Project Wingman on the horizon, get it because it's
I
a
like where
plain
this is
game,
going.
and I feel like we got to do a Gamescast double feature on those.
Oh, my heart.
So I would say that's something I think Brett and I both would be very down to do.
Yes, please. Just set the date and I'll be there.
I gotta finish the games first, but
Yeah, I know.
I'm making my way through 7 at a steady pace, and Wingman.
God, kiss
is
already, you two. My goodness.
This is literally the most romantic thing anymore.
What happens in the mech suits stays in the mech suits.
What happens in the entry plug stays
Oh
in the entry
my.
plug, okay?
Oh my.
Yep. All right. So I think that's pretty good. We covered a lot of stuff this episode. We talked pretty in depth about the medium. I don't know if we're going to go into any more detail about it. If we do minor updates on the medium, that'll be likely down the line. We'll see if it's a game that I think we have interest in doing a Games Club episode on. I'm not sure. So we'll see about that down the line. But definitely worth playing if you have Games Pass. I don't think I would recommend buying the game at full price because it is like $50. That's a pretty sizable chunk of change.
What would we agree on being like a good like sale price? I like 25.
I would say no more than 30.
30.
Yeah, I'd say 30 would be the space where I'd feel comfortable recommending it. But at the same time, like if you can play the medium, you're on a platform that has access to Game Pass.
Yeah,
it's
you
not
just
that
should
long
get it
of a
anyway.
game. Just try Games Pass for a month for $1 and play the game if you want to.
Yeah.
Like, I think that would be by far the best path because I don't think this is a game you're going to want to replay multiple times. Generally, these kind of horror games are those one and done experiences. So,
yeah,
Which
unless
again
it is, like,
makes the
Silent
price
Hill.
a little bit difficult to swallow since it doesn't really have any replay value in that respect.
Yeah.
Unless it's like Until Done when you want to, get all those different.
Well, there's no
try to get as many
branching.
endings.
yeah, this is not a
Unfortunately,
branching path game. It's telling its story. So yeah, I do definitely feel confident recommending Game Pass if you don't have Game Pass to play this game. A lot of fun. It is the first
it's a single Washington.
I think it's one of the first major games, especially on PC, that is true next gen in that it's not going to support a lot of older hardware. So definitely do your research on if your computer can run it. 2070 seems to be what I would probably consider not the minimum, but getting close to it. I probably wouldn't try to play this with less than like a 1070 or a 2060. I think trying to play it on less than that might not work very well for you. Especially because like the visual fidelity of the game is super important to the art style.
Yeah.
So it's like there was a moment at the start where I looked down at a rug on the floor and I was like, "Whoa, that rug
so detailed.
is so high resolution." And yeah,
that thread count.
It was like I could see the thread count. It was crazy and very very fun. You can tell where the budget went for this. Like the art is amazing.
Rug.
So yeah, I definitely think
who's this guy working on the rugs? We need to give that man a raise. Give him all the budget.
Wow. Why I feel like Wyatt's gonna lose it. You know, it's happening.
Well, I'm just remembering because like I don't remember.
Let the rug man feed his family.
Well, because I remember other parts of it looking kind of rough. Like I remember,
really,
like like I remember looking at the fur on the inside of like
a shag
jacket.
carpet.
It's like she has like a leather jacket, but there's kind of like a fur inside.
It's a fur lined jacket.
And like I remember the fur not looking too great either.
That might be DLSS doing some funky stuff. I think in general DLSS works really well for this game because of the fixed camera angles. There's not a lot of camera movement happening, which means objects are in the same place, so they get more detail with DLSS. But for her, that isn't happening. Marianne's moving around, so I have a feeling it's related to that if you have DLSS on.
I don't know. I don't remember it looking like super impressive, but you know what? It's probably just me.
It might depend on the settings you set, because on my end, it is definitely like when you were saying this game isn't one of the most visually impressive games. I was like, what?
Yeah. Even at like low, where it literally looks like the PS2 games, it is partially inspired by.
I mean, I wasn't able to change.
Is fucking on point.
I mean, everything was like on max. I wasn't able to change my settings because the game kept crashing. I don't know.
This is true.
It might have had the dynamic resolution setting on. I think mine did by default, and I turned that off immediately.
Oh wow, you could go into your settings menu unscathed. I'm so happy.
Well, but I couldn't leave it without the game going back to the main menus. So there are a few issues that probably need to be sorted out with this game to keep in mind, at least on PC. But otherwise enjoyable. All right, so that means we're to the part of the show where we do the thing. Y'all remember the thing? It's called Shoutouts.
Of course I remember the thing, Ryan. That thing, of course.
Yeah, of course,
Who would forget the thing?
So I'm going to start, because I need to take the shoutout while it's still there, and I got to give a shout out to Goo. Because, man, the little 90s game studio that could, except it couldn't because it's gone now, but...
Rest in peace, Goo.
I'm really glad they worked on the Atelier games. It's really... Just it warms my soul. All right.
Fills it with goo.
You know what, Wyatt? You've been chomping at the bit this entire time, I'm sure. Ready with your shout out.
Shout out to my recent brain blast for suddenly realizing that Chronos, the game that we were just talking about, is actually a prequel to Remnant, which is why it looks so similar.
It's a prequel?
I was like, wait a minute, that looks really similar. And then the trailer I was watching, it said Ward 13. I'm like, all right, wait a minute. And then I looked it up, and yeah, it's a prequel to Remnant. And then I guess mini shout out because it's called Chronos Before the Ashes, and then it's called Remnant from the Ashes.
I see.
You clever people.
Clever studio. You
or should I say? Or should I say, clever girl?
All right, Alex, take us away from Wyatt.
I know.
Who cares? God.
Alex, please save us from Wyatt with your shout out.
Wow. I can just leave if that's what you want.
Shout out to Evoland. Really, that's what I was planning to shout out. It's just a fun game full of homages.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Hey, Brett, you're up.
Yeah.
What about Europe?
Well, my be quiet. My shout out is actually a recommendation directed right at you, Mr. Alex. We're talking about whatever Before the Ashes and Remnant from the Ashes. What about Ashen? If you like the style of the first game Before
Kronos.
the Ashes, Kronos. Okay,
Ooh,
because
is
I want
that
to say
that?
Chrono Trigger. Ashen is it
That.
also has like a adult Fortnite, and it is just kind of the same game.
Is that
It's
a
Annapurna.
multiplayer
Poly,
game? But
isn't
it's
it?
like you switch between fighting styles.
No, that's
No.
Absolver.
Absolver.
Yes.
Well,
It is.
Ashen kind of has like a low poly look to it, almost, from what I remember.
Yeah, it looks like Kronos.
It's they look
Action.
very
Ooh.
similar. Your character in
Ooh.
Ashen
Oh,
doesn't have a
hello.
face like Absolver, but it is something that I would definitely classify as adult Fortnite. And if you want
Oh, I love
kind of that
it's
style of game, it is very good.
ooh, that is looking nice.
Yeah, Ashen's a game I've had on my list to finish. I played like half of it a long, long time ago and just never finished it.
It's so hard. Oh my god.
God, that looks beautiful.
Yeah, you're meant to
Wow.
play it with two people, but if you're cool, you don't need.
Well,
the
you
other
get
person.
AI. That's the cool thing. It
Yeah.
lets you play with AI companions, so you're never alone, which is
Are
nice.
they competent?
Sometimes.
Yeah, they're
Y'all
decent.
know how much Ryan and I like AI companions in video games. I don't even care. how
AI
useful
companions
they
are great.
Like, I just like having them around. I don't even care if they're like at all useful. They're just cool. I like.
It means the
rolling
developers
around
were
with them.
competent enough to program the AI of a companion, which usually means they were competent enough to make a decent game. So
You're right.
And it's for the Switch,
Usually.
my primary console, where I'm living currently. So that is perfect.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'll take you up on that recommendation.
I don't know how the Switch port is. I haven't played it,
Me
but
neither.
the PC port, I think it was made for PC, works really well. But all right, so that's our show. We did the show. We did it. Any final notes before I hit the outro button? No. All right.
No.
Great. Well, we're passing on to the beyond, going into the light as the outro plays.
Using our Spirit Blast.
Oh God, I went to the Shadow World.
Got a spirit blast.
Look, we gotta send Yugi to the Shadow Realm.
How does the Yu-Gi-Oh series end? Doesn't he actually die and go to the spirit realm or something?
I hope so.